In FS, it's no secret to any of you, the skills gap is growing. PwC does a survey every year of CEOs, and this last year, the skills gap was larger than ever. It's 70% of CEOs believing that this is a big issue for their organization. So what does that mean for us in terms of the skills gap? Essentially, we need to be doing different things and not using the same old strategies to actually fill that gap.
And if you think about what's caused the skills gaps, it's no surprise to folks here that the change in regulation, the influx of different types of technologies and new competitors, and just the change in the business models in financial services mean that we need different types of skills. Technical skills, behavioral skills, a different type of talent. So again, as Julie was saying, the skills development and the skills gap the CEOs have identified year on year. This is the largest year in FS, but still the strategies around bridging those skills gaps have to change. And we don't see there being a silver bullet, one strategy. It's not, you can't hire your way out of this problem or develop your way out of this problem. It's going to be multifaceted, which we'll talk about.
Yep. So what are those skills? Some of the skills are already things that people are looking for today. An adaptable workforce, more quantitative analytics, data scientists.
And those skills are interesting because they're both technical and behavioral. So you definitely need to be able to analyze data. So the quants are still going to have a play in this business. You've got to understand the use of data, whether that's cloud-based data in your organization or something disruptive like blockchain and what it can help with your trading cycle if you're saying in the asset servicing business. But there's also the management skills around how do you, everyone's shifting to a coaching culture around the way they manage performance and the way they manage human capital. How that fits in with the culture change that the banks are trying to drive heavily around driving much more transparency and focusing very much on the how and their behaviors. So it's really a mix of technical and behavioral. There isn't a single solution here.
What we're already doing, and we're at PwC doing in some cases, is shedding our expectations around requirements of a GPA or a specific degree. So previously, PwC, we had very stringent requirements. We're finding that the company misses the talent gap and doesn't necessarily find the best people with such stringent requirements. Financial services companies are doing this as well. We're also talking with clients about shifting to more of an apprenticeship model. And then in terms of other models, we're seeing things like partnerships with community colleges and other disruptive development programs.
One of the things we haven't talked about is, again, we talked about the way to develop people, the way you've got to kind of hire different types of talent to meet different skills. There's a lot of alternative resource models now. In the US, we call these contingent workers, and the Department of Labor in the US has a specific rule on who's a contingent worker. This is a big issue for financial services because they have a lot of them, back to we've got to move work to the right place and to the right service providers. We as PwC are contingent workers for our US financial institutions. The big challenge there is, who are they? How do they access my system? And how do I manage the risk and regulatory environment?
We're partnering with FS firms to be more forward-thinking. We talked about business strategies. What is your business strategy in 5 years? Align that with your workforce planning process and your talent strategies to essentially define today, what are those capabilities I need? Where's the skill gap going to be? And how many people at what cost do I need to essentially execute on my business strategy? So after the workforce planning, thinking more about the talent strategy, identifying what some of these more creative solutions are, embed that into your talent processes, and then ultimately measuring, monitoring, and figuring out what's working well for you, what's not.
And I guess the final point is we have digitized work up there. This all has to fit into whatever your HR system is. A number of financial institutions have or are moving to the cloud. Pick your favorite cloud vendor. The concept is the same in that the workforce data in these systems have to be right. The job frameworks have to be fit for purpose for these new skill sets, these new mindset, this new workforce. Do you have your contingent workforce in that same workforce data element? So the technology piece and the data is going to be critical to enabling everything we're discussing.